I'm just going to talk. So I'm really thankful that you all are here with me today. I anticipate that this conversation to be a very casual conversation. I have some stuff that I want to talk about, and then I hope that you have questions. I could talk for hours about being a clerk, but but I really hope that we can answer questions that you might have and have some good fellowship, get to know each other, which I think is always a good thing, to know that there are other clerks out there who struggle with the same sort of struggles and have great joy with the same sort of joy.
Recording in progress.
Yeah, just so you know, we're being recorded. But okay, so we're going to start with introductions, and this is what I want to know, and I'll call on you. I want you to please share your name, the church that you attend, the question I always ask, how long have you been a clerk? And if you don't know exactly, just say, give us an idea. And then perhaps if you have a question to start out with, or a best practice that you think is a good thing as a clerk. And if you don't have a question or a best practice that you want to share, then we'll just go on to the next person. It's truly okay. But before all of that, let's start with a word of prayer. Please pray with me. Gracious God, we are grateful for this day. We are grateful for the warmer weather. We are grateful for all that you do for us each and every day. God, thank you for being our God, for leading us, protecting us, surrounding us with your love and mercy. Help us to serve you in all that we do. In your name we pray, amen. Okay. We're getting some feedback somewhere. Okay, Betty, you're right next to me. So you're first.
Please.
Betty Knudsen from First Presbyterian Church in Wilmer, and I've been a clerk for 14 years. And one thing that I really wanted, I am a visual person, and I need some help in trying to get books sent down back to Louisville. So I need to.
You mean like historical records?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. That's what I need.
Okay. Lorna.
Yeah, Lorna Vanderlinden, clerk, First Presbyterian Lismore. I've been clerk for about 20 some years. And I guess I am searching for some kind of a form. And I know there used to be one, and there may still be, where a pastor basically records if he does an out of congregation baptism or marriage or something like that.
Okay, thank you. Ronnie.
Hi, I'm Ronnie, or Ronalva, if you want to call me by my real name, from Cambria Presbyterian Church. I actually live in Fairmont, Minnesota.
Oh.
And been a member there for since I was baptized in 1954.
Nice.
I've been the clerk for quite a few years, but I don't know how many. Working on the statistical report and the annual report right now, and trying to get all the reports in because our congregational meeting is coming up. We're also working on a different kind of sabbatical leave for our pastor, and I think we've got it figured out, but it's going to be pretty simple by the time first we'll go to the sessions have been in favor of this. Then we'll be going to the congregational meetings at the end of the month. And we are actually in a shared relationship with Medelia. So our personnel committees have been meeting together to do this and figure out the best way. Our pastor came up with the best idea. I know this is a hard thing for small churches to do, but we are looking at doing 1 month a year for 3 years. And this was our pastor's idea, which she and us were very concerned about not, being absent for too long. So we'll see where it goes. So far, everyone has felt it was very reasonable. We've had our pastor for 21 years. This is her 21st year in Cambria and her 18th year in Medelia. So
Thank you, Ronnie. Carol Beekman.
I'm Carol Beekman. I am the clerk at Ebenezer in Renville, and I've been doing it for 5-6 years. My main thing is recording things that Pastor Anna does that aren't in the church kind of thing, like recording funeral services or baptisms and things like that. I would like to kind of know how to record that.
Okay, thank you, Carol. Lori Close.
Cross, Lori Cross.
No, Close. From
Okay.
Harrison.
I'm Lori Close. My church is Harrison Presbyterian by Spicer, and I've been clerk for 14 days.
Welcome. We're glad you're here. Woohoo.
I am brand new, so I need to know everything.
Okay, so Lori,
Yes,
Wait. Don't be overwhelmed. That's my advice.
yeah. As I figure there's going to be things you're talking about that I have, or, it's going to be towards the middle or the end of a conversation, and
Yeah. And also because sometimes those of us who've been a clerk for a long time start talking and forget that there are brand new people. So don't please interrupt and let us know if you have no idea what we're talking about.
I'll try. I figure I'll be depending on some people to help me muddle through, especially
Yes,
the
yes,
first
it's
few months. And
it will be great. We're grateful you're here, Lori. Okay, Lori Cross from Brewster.
Lori Cross from Brewster, First Presbyterian. I have
Yeah.
been a clerk for a year.
Okay. Do you have any specific questions, Lori?
Just how to fix it when you've screwed up the statistical report, I guess.
Okay, we can talk about that. Jerry Olson.
I'm Jerry Olson from First Presbyterian Church in St. James. I've been clerk for 7 years, and before that I was clerk of session at the Medelia Presbyterian Church for a number of years. I come from a long line of family clerks, with both my mother and my father being a clerk, and I just found out this morning that my dad is finally going to hang up his clerk shoes come 1st of February, so I'll be the last lone family member as a clerk. So the question I have actually was passed on to me by our deacons in our church, and that has to do with record retention as far as deacons' minutes and financial reports. So if we
Okay.
can maybe touch that, that would be great.
I have a document all about record retention. So Barb Dewey.
Barb Dewey from Ashby First Presbyterian. I've been a clerk this round for about 13 years, but many times over the years. So I don't have any specific questions, I guess. I just like learning stuff all the time.
We're glad you're here, Barb. Okay, Sonia.
Hi, I'm Sonia Alexander. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, because I don't see myself. From the First Presbyterian Church in Redwood Falls. I've been a clerk for, I think, 11 years. And totally agree with the record retention, or not the record retention, the sending the records. That's my goal this year, is to get our records to Philadelphia. So I totally agree with that. And also, I wouldn't mind having some type of a calendar or something for meetings, because like I go into the January meeting, it's like, oh crap, schedule of communion. We
Yeah.
need to get this in the minutes. So I know it would be really simple for me to sit down for half an hour and do it, but
But guess what,
that
Sonia?
would be neat.
Guess what, Sonia? I have one for you that my clerk in Wyndham did. So we're gonna look at that.
Okay, fun. Okay, that's all I have.
Cindy Peterson.
Hi, I'm Cindy Peterson from Blue Earth, and I've been the clerk for 20 plus years. And when we're a small church, we do a lot more than that. And so our church happens to use Pulpit Supply exclusively, so that's kind of a struggle. I guess that's not a clerk. Well, it kind of is a clerk thing too, because I'm also the worship person, so I'm the one that's been lining people up for 12 years. So anyway, that's probably where we struggle more versus clerk is, we have some set people and sometimes we don't, so.
Okay, we can talk about it, Cindy. I don't know if I'll have any help, but we can talk about it.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, the person who's.
I didn't get my name on correctly. I'm Debbie Larson from Amway.
Debbie. Okay, I'll change it, Debbie.
Oh,
So
thank
tell
you.
us about yourself.
I have a 2-year-old with me today, and I had him all set up, but he is right here next to me. I had him set up in his own playroom, and of course that didn't work.
We love kid noise.
Yes, I have been clerk now for 2 years, and when I took the clerkship on, we had a minister, and we no longer have a minister, and we are working. I'm on the PNC. Yeah, we're working hard.
You are working hard, and you're from Amboy.
I am.
Okay. Sherry Maloney, I mean.
Hi, I'm from the First Presbyterian Church of Osakis, and I am the outgoing clerk, working on transitioning to Eva, who is also on the call. And so I've done it for, I think about, I don't know, between 5 to 7 years. Actually, I took over from my mom, who actually took over from Bonnie Olson years ago. And so we're one big happy family.
Yes.
So I think we've talked about, I'm moving to the financial secretary role. And so in our church, we're trying to make sure we have more than one person that kind of knows these roles, because you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket. And I think that's a really important thing to do. So I'm just here to kind of listen today, and even I will be working in January, just kind of moving things over to her.
Great. Thank you, Sherry. Okay, Mary.
Okay, I am Mary Klosterware. I am with the Wyndham Presbyterian Church, and I'm lucky enough is that Pam is our pastor. I would say that what we are needing is to upgrade our manual of operations. We're working to get policies in place, guidelines in place. If anyone has, this wonderful, packet, that they would want to send us so that we don't have to reinvent the wheel, we would be delighted. But we keep plugging along. We're making progress, but boy, we have a long ways to go yet. So thank you.
Mary and I often talk about how our goal is just to keep getting better. So, Bill, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yep.
I have very limited voice, so I'm sorry.
No, it's
Bill Brown from Foley Church. Been clerk here about 4 or 5 years. 2 things. I agree with the lady that statistical report, and I struggle with that, keeping that accurate. And I also struggle with setting up the agenda meetings. I tell people to call me and get things on the agenda. We get to the meeting and people add 4 or 5 more. And I don't know if that's common or not common, but those are some of the things I think about.
okay. Thank you, Bill. So Eva, you are taking over in Osakis. We can't see you very well.
Look.
There we go.
There we go. I have light behind my screen,
Yeah.
so I guess I'm kind of dark.
Yep.
So I'm brand new.
Yay, welcome. So you have lots of questions. But you're learning from one of the best, so that'll be good. Thank you, Eva. Okay, Colette.
Okay, I'm Colette Meidinger and I'm from the Winnebago, First Presbyterian Church in Winnebago. And we've been without a pastor now for too many years.
Yeah, I feel your pain.
Yeah, this is my second year as clerk, so I am still learning. I still have a gazillion questions. What I need to do as clerk, what I don't need to do as clerk. Again, like the other one said, how to recording baptisms, deaths, weddings. I guess I haven't been doing that and I don't know if that's my job. So I am ready to learn from everybody else.
Okay, thank you, Colette. And then Lori. From Round Lake. Oh, that's good, you are there. We still can't hear you, Lori. Okay. So Lori, if you figure out how we can hear you, just interrupt and we'll listen to your story. I'm just going to tell you a little bit about myself because some of you are new. So I am Pam Prouty and I am the stated clerk of the Presbyterian Minnesota Valleys. I've been the stated clerk here for over 20 years. And prior to serving as stated clerk here, I was stated clerk down in Prospect Hill Presbytery, which is in Northwest Iowa. My husband and I lived in Little Rock, Iowa, for those of you who know Iowa. And if you know where Little Rock is, then you know Iowa really well. It's a blip on the map. Let's see, so okay, besides being the Presbyterian stated clerk, I'm also the stated clerk for the Synod. The Synod covers North Dakota, South Dakota, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Iowa, and Nebraska. 6 states, did I say? I think I said 6 states. I've been the Synod stated clerk since 2016. It's a very part-time job. It's essentially like I figure it's 5 hours a week. And as stated clerk in the presbytery, it's a 14-hour-a-week job, which is, it's a weird number, I know. Hey, Lori.
Hi. I didn't.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, Lori Morrison, Round Lake, Minnesota. This is probably, I'm going on my 6th year of being on the session, being the clerk. I was on my home computer and I don't have a camera on it, and I guess I don't have a microphone on it. So I had to go to my iPhone.
Okay.
I guess, we're new. Pastor Bob has gone to retirement, and so we're looking for a pastor. So it's all the extra responsibilities, which kind of seems overwhelming at times. And then the other part is going through the books and getting them kind of cleaned up as far as who's been clerk and who's not clerk, but who's on the session and who's
okay
being baptized and that kind of stuff.
Okay. Thank you, Lori.
Yeah, bye.
So about 20 hours a week of my life is clerk work. And then the other 20 hours a week, I am the stated supply pastor in Windham. Windham is about an hour south of Redwood Falls, where I live. My husband is Sonia's pastor, and in Redwood Falls. Let's see. We have 3 kids. They're old. Our oldest got married this summer, Elizabeth, And she lives in Salt Lake City with her husband. She is a elementary special ed teacher. And then our middle daughter, Julia, is a senior at Mankato State. She's graduating on May 6th. Yay. And then our youngest, Matthew, who I used to cart around to presbytery meetings here, is a sophomore at University of Wisconsin, Eau Claire. Today, his major is healthcare administration. We'll see where he ends up. That's enough about me, but the biggest thing I want you to hear me say today is if you have a question, please don't hesitate to email me or to call me. I'll put my email in the chat in case some of you don't have it. I try to answer questions within 24 hours. So we're in this together. I'm always learning new things about being a clerk. So the first thing that I'm going to share a few things with you, and please know that all of these documents I will email. I'll have Karen in the presbytery office. We have an executive presbyter. Her name is Beth Buckwalder Miller. She's been here about 6 months. And then we have Karen Lang, who is, I think her title is Director of Administration. She's the one who knows everything and emails everything out. Betty knows her well, but and for those of you who don't know, our presbytery office is in the church in Wilmer. And we are not there every day anymore, like we used to be. Even Karen works from home and she lives near Kirkhoven, which is why the presbytery office mailing address is Kirkhoven. All right, so I'm just going to be sharing stuff with you, and I will have Karen will email it all out to you if you don't have it. And if you have it, great. If you don't have it, then you have it. This first thing I'm going to show you is, for those of you who are brand new, this is a really helpful document. The handbook for, it's not sharing the way I want it to share. This is the handbook for clerk succession. And I'm going to stop sharing because it's not sharing on the screen I want it to share on. Or maybe I'll bring you guys over here. Then maybe I can. There we go. And within the handbook, there's all these things. I heard some of you talk about session dockets. There's a sample docket in here. Preservation of records, Department of History information. There's information about membership and some basic parliamentary procedure. So we'll talk a little bit about session dockets, because I heard Bill ask the question about session dockets or agendas. Dockets is just a weird, another name for agenda. So what I can tell you about preparing an agenda. So in the Book of Order, it says, well, I don't know, maybe it doesn't say this in the Book of Order exactly, but Robert's rules will tell you that the clerk and the moderator should work together on putting the agenda together. Now, I know you all have your own ways of doing things, and truly that is okay. I can tell you what Mary, you're gonna get talked a lot about here. I can't see you all anymore, but Mary, you're gonna get talked about. So what Mary and I do is Mary has an agenda set up, and we will either talk about it together ahead of the meeting, or we'll email back and forth about it. And it's essentially what you're looking at in front of you. Mary and I talk about this a lot too. I'm a firm believer, even with presbytery meetings, I will talk with the moderator ahead of time, and we will talk through the whole agenda in quite a bit of detail. And we will talk about all the things that could go right and all the things that could go wrong, so that we are kind of prepared for it. Do any of you want to share anything about how you put your session agendas together?
I do the same thing. I had the agenda, I put it together, and then I sent it to Pastor Leanne. And she reviews it, adds a few things, even though I asked people, somebody made a comment about committees not getting ahead of information. She might know something that I don't know. And then we try to get as much on there, then we'll have to put it on as new business.
Right. And the other thing that you also need to know is like for committees, and I know some of your churches don't have committees and some of you do, but if you do have committees, honestly, if you do a written packet ahead of time with a report from each committee, then that committee does not necessarily need to report unless there's action. Again, everybody does session meetings differently. My goal is to have a session meeting be an hour to an hour and a half, unless there's something really major that we need to talk about. But even if there's something really major that we need to talk about, I still think it's better to put stuff on like a consent agenda. Sonia, do you guys still use a consent agenda? No. At one time, the Redwood Church did. And a consent agenda is where you would put actions on it. It's called, there's other names for it. I know it best as consent agenda, but a consent agenda is something that you would put all actions on that just need to happen, like approval of the communion dates or approval, something that's not going to be controversial or need a lot of conversation. And then
your clerk's report, your,
Yep, your clerk's report, the pastor's report, that could all go on a consent agenda. It's something that doesn't generate a lot of any discussion, and it just needs to be approved. So that also will help with the time that your session meets. Any questions, other comments?
I'll just jump in and say that if we are presenting something new, we try to provide a document as a starting point rather than just, saying, here's the problem.
Right.
That we work from what we think might work for us.
Mm-hmm. Yes. It's always, I mean, Mary and I are kind of in agreement here. We like to have things written down and we like to be able to read it. I think that's a great jumping off point. But Bill, as to your question about adding things to the agenda, that's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, that could just be the culture of your session. I mean, it's hard. I feel your pain about getting people to return reports, and it can be a challenge.
What we do is about a week and a half before our meeting, we send everything to the secretary, and then she sends everything out to the session members.
Mm-hmm.
So they get the agenda, the docket, all the committee reports. So if there's any question about it, they can come back at the meeting. On our consent agenda, if there's something on the consent agenda that somebody wants to remove, we can remove it and discuss it as new business.
Oh, that's a good point, Betty. Thanks for bringing that up. I mean, just so you know, if you do use a consent agenda, the idea is that any one member can remove whatever they have a question or they want to take a different action on, and it automatically gets put on the regular agenda.
So I've never made an agenda. Our secretary makes it.
Okay.
Is that kosher?
Well, of course it's kosher. Of course it's kosher.
She probably knows more than I do what's going on in the church anyway.
Yeah, I would hope that, so Colette, you're from Winnebago, is that right?
Right, yeah.
I would hope that, and I'm sure that Pastor Michael had something to do with the agenda when he was the pastor. I mean, I really do think that the moderator or the clerk should at least look at an agenda before it goes out. Okay. Although your church secretary is really involved, I get it. I mean, some churches don't have a church secretary. Some churches have a church secretary who's really involved and knows what they're doing, and some don't. So, but honestly, an agenda a basic agenda doesn't really change from meeting to meeting. I mean, you could have a pretty basic agenda that doesn't, that just, you know, that, so it doesn't change from meeting to meeting.
I use the
Okay.
same agenda. I just change the dates and add what the minutes are being approved and add, you know, in other words, if you already have it in the system, it's a lot easier just to add, you know, add or subtract.
It is. It is. Okay. So Bill, was that helpful?
Yes, thank you.
Great. So I'm gonna check that. So
Cookie.
let's talk about the stat report. I've heard a few of you talk about the stat report. You all know that that is due on the website from the National Church on February 3rd. If you have challenges, with the technology part of doing the stat report, please call. I can help with some general technology stuff. I know that the National Church suggests that you use the internet browser Firefox because they have found that that's the best browser that supports their website. Honestly, I don't use Firefox. I use Chrome, Google Chrome, and I do not have issues. But sometimes that does help to change your internet browser. But the biggest thing is, if you're sitting there and you can't figure out how to make changes, I heard Lori Cross ask about that. If you have put your report in, honestly, you should be able to go back to it until February 3rd and make any changes that you want to make. It should,
Even if you send it off?
even if you've hit the submit button, because the submit button really doesn't do anything. It's just there. But but if you cannot figure out how to make the changes, just email them to me and I will get them in for you, and then I'll send you a new final report with the changes in it. I know what it's like to struggle with technology, and sometimes I mean, I have a different access to all of this stuff, so I'm not even going to go to the website because what I look at is so different from what you look at. But so I have a different access, so sometimes I can get that information in easier and quicker. That's my biggest thing about the stat report. Don't get frustrated about the technology piece. And also, honestly, the most important question to answer is the membership question, because that is what the presbytery bases per capita on. So if you get nothing else in your stat report, get at least the membership number. But that's not to say that the other numbers aren't important, especially if you're looking for a pastor, because everybody has access to your report, like the trends over time. And a lot of pastors will go and look, prospective pastors will go and look at those reports to see about your numbers and stats. Okay, so does anybody have a specific question about the stat report or putting that together? It only needs to be approved by the session. It can be, in Wyndham, we sometimes have included it in our annual report book and sometimes we haven't, but it only needs to be approved by the session.
What I do with mine is I just send it out electronically to the
Yeah.
session members. And
Yeah.
matter of fact, the last one just came in today for approval, so I'm set to go. It's not my favorite thing. I'm being honest. I've been doing it for so many years. It's not my favorite thing to do, but it's important. And so I struggle through it.
Thank
and
you.
I don't let my husband go out of the apartment for that day until I get it on. So if I have a problem.
Okay, Jerry, do you have a question?
Not necessarily a question, but just a comment. I guess what used to always drive me nuts about the statistical report was the financial side of it.
Yeah.
Because those of us that have been clerks for many years can remember back in the day when the financial side of it had to balance out to the penny.
Yeah.
Where you had your starting balance, or your starting balance was your ending balance from the previous year, and you had to add in all the receipts, the income, and then all the expenses, and it always had to balance out to the penny. And I'm away from that because that, I tell you, that was enough to drive anybody crazy.
Right, and so that, thank you for bringing that up, Jerry, because the financial questions are back this year. I mean, they're back, like, they are different this year than last, but just so you know, they do not have to be the same number. Your income and your expense might not be the same number, and that's okay. Okay, so any other questions about the statistical report?
I just realized a week ago that I made a mistake in 2021. Forgot somebody that died in December.
Okay.
Do I amend that report, or Presbytery just got extra per capita?
So you cannot amend the report once the due date is gone. So what you're reporting on now is 2022. So Bill, I would make sure you get your membership right this year. And then as far as the per capita on the one member that you forgot to include in your report, I would encourage you, if you really want to, if you're really concerned about the per capita for that one person, then you just email me and we can talk about it.
No, I'm not concerned about it.
Okay. Okay, so the other thing I heard, another question I heard, and I have notes here of what I want to talk about, is roll books. I'm gonna find the roll book stuff in the handbook, and we can talk about that. So I'm scrolling, looking for the roll book stuff right now. And then I'll share it with you. Oh, I'm not finding it quickly enough. I'm just gonna. So, in the book of order, this is the newest book of order. It's purple. Mine says 2019 to 2021. So just so you know, that is still the most current book of order. New books of order will be coming out this summer. So the book of order is available on the PCUSA website. It's pcusa.org. The website is pcusa.org. You can get the book of order and download it as a PDF. I personally, I like the hard copy. Books of order, when the new books of order come out, you'll be able to purchase them through the Presbytery office, because we can buy them in bulk and it might be a little cheaper. I really hope that there is at least one copy of the most current book of order in your church. There are some sessions that get books of order for everybody, and that's great. And then there are others that just have a one copy, and that's fine too. It's whatever you're used to. But if you look there, G3, the G3 section is where we talk about sessions, and it talks about the minutes and records. If you have it in front of you, it's on page 49, G30204. Let me put that in the chat so that you can go to it. The book of order has 4 sections. The F section is like our theology. The G section is like the rules. And this is where you're going to find all the information about sessions. The W section is worship. And there's stuff about sessions in there too. And then the D section is the rules of discipline. That's the one where we talk about the church judicial process. But this is where we talk about What is required for you to keep track of? D30204, minutes and records. So it says here that every session shall maintain rolls and registers. If I were really cool, I could like do a whiteboard and write this stuff down, but I'm not really cool. But the roles that you are required to keep are your membership roles. I'm putting this in the chat. Oh, Pamela, membership role, and you have active members and baptized members. I'm having problems. Baptized members and affiliate. Those are the only members that you are required to keep track of. So active members are all of us here on this call are active members. Baptized members are essentially people who've been baptized at your church who have not become a member. So typically those are children. Not always, but typically, and for the 90% of the time, baptized members are children. Active members are what you pay per capita on. Affiliate members, we don't have many affiliate members. That's somebody who really wants to, whose membership is really important to them, and they might move for 6 months of the year to Florida, and they want to be an affiliate member at a Presbyterian church down in Florida. We don't have many affiliate members, but those are the only ones you're required to have. You know, at one time in our Presbyterian church, we had inactive members, but we don't have those anymore. So what some churches have, so it's up to each session to decide what they want to do with what we used to call inactive members. Some churches call them friends of the church, and they're people who you might see regularly, who don't want to become a member, but still want to be affiliated with your church. But every session has to make that decision. The only registers, and this is where I heard the question come, the only registers you're required to keep are a baptized register or roll, some people call it that. You need to keep, so you need to record all the baptisms that take place at your church. Remember, the records you're keeping are for your church. So if, Carol, I think you had the question about this. If Anna does a baptism somewhere else, you don't need to record it in your book. You could record it in your minutes as Anna did this baptism somewhere else, but it doesn't need to be part of your baptized roll or register. You need to keep, yeah.
If a baptism is done in your church by your minister, but it's from somebody else out in the community, would that need to be recorded?
Yes, it would.
Because it's in your church.
Because it's in your church. And so then that baby, we'll just name him John right now, Lorna. That baby would be on your baptized roll. It could be, they could be on your baptized roll forever if they don't become a member of your church. Or, I mean, you can remove people from the baptized roll, but feasibly that person could be on your baptized roll forever because they were baptized at your church. Does that help?
Yeah. Now, when a baptized member goes through confirmation and becomes confirmed, do you need a motion to move them from the baptized roll to the active roll? Or does that happen automatically?
Well, okay. Technically, when John, who was baptized at your church, becomes a member, the session would say, would take the action to make that, to move him from the baptized roll to the active member roll. Technically, that could be the motion, but I mean, I don't think you need a separate motion. If John, who is on your baptized roll, becomes a member and session takes the action to make him a member, if they don't say the words from baptized roll to active roll, that's okay, it's implied.
So we removed a bunch of people from the active roll. I sent out letters and they were supposed to get back to me by December 1st. If they didn't, we put them on a friend of the church, then they are no longer an active member that you're not paying per capita on, correct?
Correct.
And that was approved by the session.
Yep.
Okay.
And so I want to talk about what you just talked about, but let's get through these registers first. So the other register you're required to keep is baptisms, ruling elders, deacons, and ministers who are ordained with the dates of service. And other registers as the session. So really, I mean, and I know that the books that we get from Cokesbury or wherever you get those register books have a whole lot of other registers in them. The only ones you're truly required to keep are your baptized, people you baptized, and people you ordain. Now, Betty's husband Earl would say the funerals are a good thing the deaths are a good thing to keep track of because Earl's really into genealogy. Weddings are a good thing to keep track of because, you know, that's one of the few places in the world where weddings are kept, or there's a legal record of weddings. So you can do that, but you're not required to. So if, I'm just going to use Anna again, Carol, because you're the one who came up with the question. If Anna, it's Anna Williamson, she's the pastor in Renville. If she does a wedding outside your congregation, of somebody who's not a member of your congregation, again, that can be recorded in your minutes. Certainly, it could be part of her pastor report, but it doesn't need to be part of your official record. It's the same with funerals. Unless Anna is doing a wedding in the Rocky Mountains for a member of your church, then if you keep track of your weddings, that would go in your book. Does that make sense?
How about if it's an inactive or other participant member, Pam?
Yeah, I would
Haven't heard from him since he got removed from the rolls.
So unless, that's a good question, Carol. If you have another role, like a friend of the church or an inactive member role, if those folks get married or died and your pastor of your church does that ceremony, I would record that just for the sake of record keeping. Okay. Does anybody have questions about any of that? So I've had a few questions about what Lori Cross was talking about, is how can we remove active members? That's in the G2. I'll give you this one too. G104 is where they define members and talk about different categories. So see, even for me, it takes me a bit to find what exactly I'm looking for. So I'm going to membership removal, because I want to make sure I give you the right. It's G30204. I want to give you the right information. Okay. So this is the G30204A is where we talk about removal of membership. The session makes the decision. The session makes the decision about removing people from the roll. They can, members can be removed when they request it, which that's the easiest thing. People move, they want to remove they want to change their membership. That's great. Or you can, it's the 2 years. That's what I was looking for specifically. If you have a person, what should we name it? Sally. Sally hasn't been part of your church for 2 years. You haven't seen her in worship. She hasn't given any offerings. She's not been involved in anything that your church has done. She can be removed, but before she's removed, it has to be 2 years and you have to contact her. So you need to send a letter. You need to have a session member or somebody else reach out to her and ask her, we haven't seen you. Are you interested? I mean, do you want to continue your membership? Can we move you to the Friends of the Church, or if you have another role, that kind of thing. And it has to be a session decision. So Mary has this great document that I should have shown that, or I could. She has this great document that she's put together, and I will email it to you because I'm sure we can share it. Where she has the person's name. We take attendance at church on Sundays, so she will know if they've attended church. She will know, and she has the treasurer tell her if the person has given an offering. And then we have other events that they could participate in. Is that basically it, Mary?
No, we have just the two. It's the attendance is that we've seen them, at least once, during the year. And we do Zoom, so they have that option. That's, that counts. And then we ask the treasurer to, let us know, has there been any contribution? I don't see the amount. I just know whether or not that we have a contribution. And, I just do for the 2 years past. And that helps us to know who it is we need to reach out to. We don't look at it as a negative for them. It's a challenge to us as to who we need to connect with.
Yeah, thank you, Mary. So the treasure question is just a yes or no. So since we have that it's always great to have the documentation. And then the committee that deals with members will contact them and we move on from there. Is that helpful? Does anybody have any questions about that?
I'll just say that we did last year in 2021, we had a lot of people who were on our rolls who we had not seen for years and years. And so with Pam's guidance, we moved like 23 people from active members to, I think they went to the other category because we have 4 categories: the active, the baptized, the friends, and the other. And that has helped us a great deal.
Right. So at Wyndham, the other would be the people who have been members, but we no longer see. And then friends would be people who've never been a member, but they regularly are involved at our church. What was I going to say? Oh, if you would like a sample of a letter to that sort of letter to send out, did I see nodding? If you would ever, okay. Again,
can you just email that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will email all of this stuff and you use what you want to use but I need to make a note. Membership letter. It's just simply what we use at Wyndham. And so you can adapt and use however you want. Okay.
We probably have two registers. I mean, we have the big register book, and I've gone through it just looking, and there's a lot of people that aren't coming. They probably left for college and have never returned, but have never been moved to
right
in there, has never been documented. And yet we have a list of members just laying loosely in the book. Do all those other people need to be documented somehow into a different?
Okay, so that's a great question, Clerk. Thank you. I think sometimes, because the register book gets used over such a long period of time, it can get really confusing. So honestly, I will honestly tell you. So I read to you what is required for you as a church to keep as a register, but it doesn't tell you how. So if you want to start over, that's totally fine. And sometimes that's just the best thing to do because it is important. It is important that you have when Sally joined the church, the date. And if she gets transferred or dies or something else, it's important to have that date in there as well. So as far as, I don't know, Colette, sometimes we have churches, we have people on our rolls who we have no idea who they are or how to contact. And if that's true, they could easily be removed by the session. Or the other thing is, if you send a letter to Sally and you send it to the address you have, and it's not the right address, and it comes back to you, that it also says to me, if you really have no way of contacting that person, that you can remove them.
Okay.
But as far as what the book oh, go ahead, Jerry.
Just a comment or two on those letters. No matter how well you craft that letter, and you're doing so to encourage them to resume participating in the life of your church, how the individual receives those letters is going to be across the entire spectrum. Last time we sent out letters, we had one person responded and was very thankful that we reached out to them, and they thanked for the letter, and that was on one extreme. And on the other extreme, we had a person who got upset that they even got the letter in the first place. And also on those letters, granted, you want to encourage them to resume participating in the church, but you've got to be firm about it. Like for us, we said, if we do not hear back from you, we will remove you from the roll. So
that's a really good point, Jerry. And the thing that we also need to remember is that an active member means that they can vote at the congregational meeting and they can hold an office, right? They could be an elder or a deacon. That's all, honestly, because honestly, a lot of people, for whatever reason, want to know that they have a place that they could have their funeral. Barbara's agreeing with me. So if you have another category of membership, like Friends of the Church or your other category, and if a person's name is on here, that doesn't mean that they can't have their funeral at your church. But people don't always understand that. So go ahead.
We put that in the letter when we send out letters, that you can have plan your wedding at our church.
Yep. And they can still sit on a committee. They could still sit on the worship committee. You don't have to be a member to sit on a committee. You have to be a member to be on the session or the board of deacons.
Colette, you mentioned the college, people. Those were people that we focused on because we realized is that once they graduated from high school, they kind of just poof, were disappearing for us. And we said it was our responsibility to connect with them. So we really have made a concentrated effort to reach out to them and to, say, you are part of us. And I think that has been it's been a plus. They will join us on Zoom periodically, because oftentimes people who have been in a church, it's hard for them to get a new church. So they still feel a strong connection to the church they were raised in.
And
Pam?
Yes, go Sonia.
What Mary was talking about, especially the kids that they go off to college and maybe not return to Redwood Falls and stuff. A lot of them want their children baptized in the church. If they're not an active member, can they have their child baptized in our church?
Technically, the Book of Order says a person has to be an active member to have their child baptized. So that's technical, but so I'm going to talk to you now, not as the state clerk, but as Pam Prouty, pastor at Wyndham. I I like to err on the side of grace. Well, you know that for those of you who've been around a long time, you know that about me. I would rather err on the side of grace and being pastoral than to not. It's a session decision. So if we need another name. If Anne wants her child baptized at your church, if she was a member at one time, she's been moved to the inactive role, you could easily just as a session take action to move her to the active role and baptize her child. That's one option. If Anne is just a member of the community and wants her child baptized, I might then, well, I would meet with that Anne and her partner and talk with them about what baptism is, why is it important that your child be baptized? Are you interested at all? Could we see you come to church for a while to see that this is something that's really important to you? We did that, Mary, at Wyndham with a person who wanted their baby baptized. I would approach it differently with someone who's has no connection to the church. But would I still baptize their child? If the session said yes, then I would. It's a great question, Sonia. Does anybody have anything to say about that?
One thing that we did this last time was, it was baptism of a former member who had gone through confirmation, grew up in our church. And we encouraged where they lived to check out a Presbyterian church, a PCUSA church.
Yeah, you can do
Close
that
to them.
too. Yes, Jerry.
Situation we had in our church is that it was the grandchild of a member that was to be baptized. So,
and that's pretty common as well. First, we all know that sometimes baptism is more important to the grandparent than the parent, but I still think I wouldn't baptize a child without the parent's permission. I know that that's been done, but I wouldn't do that. And we have to remember that the baptism is a session decision. It's truly a session decision. We don't do anything in the Presbyterian Church that one person has the authority to make a decision. But there's something. No, okay. So, did we answer the questions about membership and registers? If you want to talk with me about different ways of actually having a physical copy of your registers or roll book or register book, we can do that. I hope you heard me say that there are no requirements for how you do that, but there are some best practices. The biggest thing for me is I would make sure it looks official, and it needs to be on archival type paper or acid-free paper so that it's savable for centuries.
Where do you find that paper? I've been looking, I can't find it.
Honestly, Lori, most paper that's sold today is acid-free. There's a higher quality archival paper. I can, the Presbyterian history site will recommend stuff. I will send you a link.
Okay, thank you.
If you Google archival paper, you'll find a link, and it's expensive. The true archival paper is expensive.
Okay.
Okay.
Question.
Yes.
Along that line, Pam, I'm getting to the end of my paper that I use in my minute book that has the 3 holes.
Yep.
With a little prong, and then you push the thing. If we get archival or acid-free paper, can we just put that in a 3-ring binder? Is that acceptable?
You can. You can, and you want to make sure that your 3-ring binder is a higher quality one as well. That they come in different aspects as well. Honestly, I think to me the biggest advantage of those official looking books from Cokesbury or wherever you buy them is that they look official. So because I know that many records are kept in the homes of clerks of session, which has its own pros and cons. But so if a clerk of session dies and someone is cleaning out their house and they come across a 3-ring binder, let's hope that they know that that would be pretty important and they shouldn't throw it away and it needs to go back to the church. That's my biggest deal. Because I know a lot of churches keep their records in 3-ring binders now, and that's okay. You just want to make sure that people know it's important.
Pam, along that line, has anyone digitized their, the book?
I know we have Excel documents of membership, right, Mary? Yeah. So, and there are different computer programs you can buy out there. I don't know if any of you use computer programs for your membership roles or that kind of thing. You can do that.
Yeah, I was thinking of digitizing the book. That's what I was thinking of doing.
Okay.
Has anybody done that? It's not.
I've been wondering if you could do that also, just to make sure that there's a second copy someplace.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that I would feel better if that was the case.
And of course you can do that. Of course you can do that. My recommendation is that at least once a year you run a physical copy of your roll and so you have that physical copy.
So we put our member list in our annual report this last year.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was helpful to everyone and especially me.
Okay, so we've talked about agendas, we've talked about registers, we've talked about members. We've talked about stat reports, planning calendars. I'm going to share with you this wonderful planning calendar that Mary has put together for us. And so you have to realize that this is, I need to share first. Then I go to my yearly planning guide. And I will email this out to you. And it has highlights in it because we continue to work on this. But it's been really helpful. Can you see it? Okay, so this time it did it right. So this is just, let me make it a little bigger. This is, it's particular to Wyndham, but we have for every month things that we need to think about. So January, this Sunday is per capita Sunday. So that's why we had the per capita piece in January. February. See, it even says ashes and palm branches because we have forgotten those in the past. And we, at Wyndham, we take all 4 of the denominational offerings. So we have that in there. So you can see there's some things that are just particular to us and how we operate. But December is when we set all those, I've heard you talk about all those dates and whatnot. And we put Christmas gifts in there because we've forgotten those in the past too.
Do you mind sending that out to us too?
Yes, I will. I have this on my list too, so that you can, it is helpful to have a planning guide, but then you have to remember to follow it. That's the other piece. But do any of you have such a planning guide? Or have thoughts about such a thing?
I think it would be really helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have one that was passed down to me, and I think it was actually created by Jerry's mom that I still look at that has the basic things on it. But I do like your, the one that you've got where it's got more detail.
Yeah.
The only thing I ever use for a planning guide is I do the agendas because we don't have anybody else to do that. And then the secretary kind of puts in what she thinks should be in there as well. And I just use like agendas from like other years, you know, for January, and you just go back and look and see what you did in January. But this one is further out, so you can be looking ahead, which is nice.
Cindy, that's how I remember things too, as I look at the agenda from the previous February meeting. It's exactly what I do. Okay. And then, let's see. Manual of Mary and I are working on manual of operations. In the clerk handbook, I'm going to share that with you again. Clerk, where is the clerk handbook? I know I have it. Why is it not showing? Why is it not showing? 20. There it is. Okay, I'm not looking in the right place. In the clerk handbook, there is a list of things that could be part of a manual of operations. So if you have been a clerk for a while, I gotta find it. You know, the Book of Order used to give us a lot of information that we had to do as a church and kept rules for us. But when they redid the book, when they redid the G section a few years ago, it's been almost 10 years. A lot of that came back to, they tried to make the denomination tried to make the, here we go, the Book of Order more flexible for everybody. So manuals became a more important thing. So in your manual, so these are things that you could include in your manual. And I know Wilmer has a really good manual, Betty. We've talked about it. But so you would have your organizing documents, like your articles of incorporation and bylaws and that kind of thing. You would have a description of your nominating committee. You would have your basics about what it means to be a member and how you contact them. You would have all your, if you have committees, you'd have your committees and what the committees do. You could have a list of presbytery commissioners. If you have paid church staff, I think it's important, other than the minister, you need to, it's important to have a job description for what they do and different personnel policies, information about finances, and then a church calendar. You can see instructions for ushers or greeters of that kind. I mean, so that's, I'm going to stop sharing unless you guys want to continue looking at it. This is in the handbook, which I'm going to send out to you. So honestly, your manual can be as detailed as you want it to be, or as I mean, you as a session decide what's going to go in it. Betty, do you want to tell us? Before I call in you, Betty, I do think it's important if you have paid church staff that you have some semblance of personnel policies for them. How much vacation they get, how they can, who they respond to, who they're responsible to. If they have a disagreement with the head of staff, what they need to do to, what they can do to get their disagreement worked out. It doesn't, I mean, I think sometimes we get overwhelmed with the idea of what can go in a manual, what should be in a manual of operations. And my advice to you is to make them as simple, but as detailed as you need them to be.
We're in constant working on ours. Right now, we're in the process of reevaluating it again for different committees. We've had some staff changes for our maintenance staff. And so we've had to rewrite that. And then we're constantly updating. So you need to keep up on top of it.
Yeah. That's the thing with a manual of operations. I mean, they can quickly go out of, get out of date. And it is important that you keep it up to date. And it's important, I see Lorna with her notebook.
Well,
It's
I have a
important-
bunch of questions because
Okay,
it's kind
go.
of like a Microsoft update. You
Yeah,
have to stay up to date, otherwise something gets past you. And I was just thumbing through. This is just ours. It's very informal, but we have job descriptions in it, and we have our, sexual misconduct policies in here. We even have scholarship assistance guidelines in here. As far as if a person wants to go to camp, our church feels that there needs to be some effort on the family receiving the money from the church for a youth camp. That there's some responsibilities that they need to have. So we've kind of just made ours informal, but my question to you, Pam, is there, this was a sheet I got a long time ago that was a guideline of what should all be in it.
okay.
Is there a newer one, or is this still a good thing to follow, or, because
Okay, so-
obviously this one's been marked up.
So I can't tell where your sheet is from, but what I have there, what I just showed, which is in the Clerk Accession Handbook, is a good guide. I would love to see your table of contents, Lorna. Do you have your table of contents of your do you have a table of contents for your manual?
I believe so.
Do you have it on a computer that you could email it?
I can do that.
Okay. Why don't you do that? And Betty, do you have a table of contents for your manual? She's getting to, we got it.
You want me
There
to
we go.
send it to you?
Yeah, why don't you email me your table of contents? Lorna, you email me your table of contents and I'll email it out to all of you. Another piece I think is really important, because this is where you can get a lot of conflict. I think it's important, no matter what size your church is, that you have some sort of building use policy. What sorts of outside community groups will you let use your building? And do they have to pay a fee to use your building to cover cleaning costs or any sorts of things like that? I know in Redwood, they've had a lot of conversations about building use. So I think that's, and please don't hear me say that it has to be a long, elaborate thing. It could be a couple sentences, just so that you have an idea. I know at Wyndham, Mary and I have been taught, because of the DeMar's issue in football and needed CPR immediately. That prompted Mary and I to think about emergency preparedness. And so that's what we're working on right now at the Wyndham Church, is an emergency preparedness plan, like tornado drills or fire drills, or what do you do if someone has a heart issue and you need help? What were you showing? What do you have there, Sonia? Oh yes, is that from PDA? I know, and I'll send a link for that. I know Presbyterian Disaster Assistance has a lot of emergency preparedness stuff. Mary, I just thought of that.
On that line, does anybody have a policy for, say, a disorderly subject, or we had down here in Sheldon, Iowa, not too long ago, and Sheldon's only about 40 minutes from where I live, actually had what I would call a disturbed individual came into the church on a Sunday evening prior to the service and got into a confrontation with a minister. And actually physically assaulted the minister and carried a gun into the sanctuary.
Wow.
I have been trying to get my session to move on dealing with fire, how to properly evacuate, because we have limited exits, and how to handle tornadoes, how to handle things like that, along with what to do if, hopefully we never need it, but if somebody would come in that for
Yeah.
whatever reason is angry. How do you have, is there a policy like that? My church is dragging their feet on that.
So Carol Beekman, do you guys have an active shooter policy? I know that I've talked with Anna about that a lot. Do you actually have a policy?
I don't think we have a policy, but we're throwing Bibles at them.
We have a
Okay, so
policy that was
Lorna,
written by.
Lorna, I know that there's an active shooter policy, that Presbyterian Disaster Assistance has one. I will send you a link. But I think even more than an active shooter policy, I think your question about how do you handle someone who comes in and disrupts what's going on in your church? I honestly don't know if there's such a policy, but I think it's worth a conversation. And I honestly don't know. PDA might have something, and I will look for you.
We had a law enforcement officer actually write a program as far as how to evacuate properly, what to do in case of, but the session is just kind of buried their head in the sand that this will never happen.
I know.
And I would like to be proactive and have a policy in case it does happen.
Yes.
And hopefully it won't, but if it does. So yeah, if you want to send me that and we can compare what we've written.
Yeah.
Because we have a policy outwritten, it just hasn't been approved.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think we as humans, we just don't, sometimes it's just hard to face the reality of the world. And we would rather stick our head in the sand than to think that somebody would actually come into a church and do something horrific. But honestly, we all know it's happened. So, and I totally agree with you, Lorna. I think it's better to have a conversation and a policy, because then you kind of have had some thought about it.
I think maybe a little urging Pam from the Presbytery to be maybe proactive might get my session off the fence post.
I will tell you, Lorna, when Anna was the moderator of the Presbytery, unfortunately, it was the year of COVID, so none of this happened. But when she was moderator of the Anna Williamson, is who I'm talking about. When she was moderator of the Presbytery, we were going to do a program about an active shooter and what to do. And then COVID hit and it just got dropped. But I agree with you, Lorna. I could certainly put something in the Valley Bridge to talk about the importance of emergency preparedness.
Well, then Lorna, you had the police department, someone from the police department kind of evaluate your church then.
Yes. What they did is they actually wrote, I expressed to them what we wanted. We wanted an orderly process for fire evacuation, and where to go to so that everybody just doesn't just leave. You want to be able to have everybody in one spot so you can do a head count, make sure you have everybody. We also had tornado that they wrote up, and then we had an active shooter and a bomb threat. And they actually wrote a policy, and this was written by a law enforcement officer that grew up in our church. So he's familiar with the logistics of how things work in our church, where our entrances are. But I can't get my session to budge on it because they keep saying that won't happen in a small community.
Well, okay, and you all need to know Lorna's in Lismore. Lismore is a tiny, tiny community. So, Mary, did you want to say something?
Right, I was going to say just a little bit of reading I did was you need to have it established who speaks for the church if there's an incident.
Right.
And
yep, and that we do have in I actually have a 3-page document on both sides about there being a what they call a disaster. It's in here, but who handles it? Because that way there's not mass chaos.
Yes, because you only want one person who's the official person to speak, yeah, so we are very interested in what you've done there.
We are.
I can email this out to you and you guys can, revamp it or whatever you need to do. But I do think, Pam, that you carry quite a bit of clout with, and I think if you'd recommend it, it would probably help move it through.
I will gladly write an article for the Valley Bridge. Yes, Ronnie. Lorna's going to share her stuff. And honestly, Betty, I mean, I know that your church is a lot, it's one of the biggest member churches in our presbytery. So sometimes sometimes we as small member churches think that what the big member churches doesn't apply to us, but that's not true. So Betty, if you could email your stuff too, because I know you have a really good manual. I would love to see it. And I'd love to see yours too, Lorna. And any of you others. If you guys have good stuff that you think would be of value to anybody else, please email it to me and I can get it to everybody. I'll have Karen, is it okay if Karen emails all the email addresses of those who are here today to everybody? So then you could do a personal contact if you want to. I can also help. I can help. Well, you can go to the presbytery website, honestly. You can go to the website and get all the clerks accession. You want me to show you how to do that? Are you guys familiar enough with the presbytery website? Do you know where things are? Do you want to look at it right now? I'm not getting any feedback. Oh, okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, let's look at I gotta pull it up first. Okay, so I'm gonna share the presbytery website. This is a plethora of information. I'm moving you guys here. Okay, so this is minnesotavalleys.org. This is the homepage. You can see, so the presbytery meetings are the videos there. But when you go to the directory, if your name is in the directory, you can get you'll get a password. So if you have issues or don't know how to do the password piece, my advice is to talk with Karen and she can talk you through it. I'm writing this down so I remember to tell you. But if you look over here on the left, you'll see where it says under our picks, one of the things you can pick is Clerks. Come on. And then all the clerks come up. You're all right there. And so you can click, we'll pick on Lynn Olson since he thinks he doesn't need to be a clerk anymore. That's Jerry's dad. So then his phone number comes up and an email address. Lynn is the clerk up at Baxter. And his address for that matter. Okay, so so you can do, or you could go to this people part. You can just put a name in, hit the arrow, and then my husband and I come up. So here I am. Oh, it's not gonna, you can't see your own stuff. We'll pick on Leroy. Leroy's the clerk down at
Worthington.
Worthington. So so you can see the roles that he has held in the presbytery and whatnot and what for. The churches works as well. It's really, you can just put the name of the church and there we are. And wow, that's kind of cool. It has who the clergy, the clerk, our email address. There is our statistical report right there, the most current one. There's directions, our worship time. I would honestly encourage you guys to go look at your church and make sure that the worship time is right. And then it has a link to the website. Honestly, Karen's pretty good about making sure this is as updated as it can be. But then here's these are presbytery committees. I'm not sure what's under organizations. Oh. So that's the directory. And you noticed it was password protected. If you just want to go back to the homepage, you click on, that doesn't work. Honestly, I don't come to the website often. But the other thing I wanted to show you, this is where you can, under news and event, I'm back at the homepage. Under news and events is where the Presbyterian calendar, the newsletter is the Valley Bridge. Hope if you do not get the Valley Bridge in your inbox, you need to let us know. Under resources is where you'll find lots of information. The forum page. These are all the different forms. We heard somebody, Lorna, talk about camp scholarships. That's the scholarship application form. A lot of you know about the technology grant that you can get every year from the Presbytery for technology in your church. This is right here is the session records form, which we have to talk about before we leave. Here's the clerk accession handbook that I've been talking about and alluding to this morning. You can find it here. Let's look at this, because this was a question you all had. The retention schedule for congregations. This is from the Presbyterian Historical, oh, where did it go now? So can you see that? The retention schedule? Okay, so this is from, again, I gotta move it to my other screen so I can look at it better. This is from the Presbyterian Historical Society. I'll make it a little bigger. I will send this out. I can email this out to you too. But this is what the Presbyterian Historical Society in Philadelphia says you need to keep.
Put it on the screen.
Obviously.
And we can't see it.
Oh, thank you. Let me stop share. Let me just do it again. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Perfect. So minutes, registers, this is stuff that's all permanent, but you have to keep all the time. You can see what it says here. The financial records, it's usually a 7-year or 3-year that is suggested. But that's a whole document there. As far as is it okay if I stop sharing? Or are you still looking at, because I can't see you all, so it feels weird. As far as sending records to the Historical Society. So if you go to history, the Presbyterian, I'll share the website. That's what I'm going to do. Can you, oh, wait a minute, you can't see it. There, now can you see Presbyterian Historical Society?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Jerry, you're one of the people I can see. So so this is the Presbyterian Historical Society out in Philadelphia, and they will keep your records for you. If you go click on services, it talks here about records deposit. It's really simple. It's a lot of work, but it's not like a hard, complicated process.
USA.org.
It's history.pcusa.org. I'll send you this link too. But essentially what you need to do for, it's good to have a policy. And the Presbyterian level, I have a policy that says every 7 years I will send records, official records to the Historical Society. And I send them our basically what I send from our presbytery are minutes and any rolls, the official stuff that I have to keep. And I send them the nice, beautiful, archival type paper minutes. But I have a copy of all the minutes. I was just looking at them Thursday in the presbytery office. I have a paper copy of all of our minutes. So that the official stuff is in Philadelphia. the unofficial stuff, I still do have copies, paper copies of them. But when you send records to to Philadelphia, what they will accept are minutes. Those on that record retention schedule, they'll accept everything that says permanent. Minutes, rolls, interesting pieces of your history, like from the newspaper or pictures or any of that kind of stuff. What you do is you box it up in a box, you write, here, it tells you right here. Before packing and shipping records, please consult the retention schedule, which I showed you, or you can email the Historical Society to make sure you're shipping only records of permanent value. Create a signed cover letter that says this is what's in here. It's all right here. So I heard somebody ask a question about Deacon's records. Did somebody ask a question about Deacon's records and want to know about? Yes. Jerry, tell me more about your question.
I was just approached by the secretary treasurer of our deacons, and her question is how long do they got to keep their minutes and financial records? I guess my initial hunch is that as far as the deacons' minutes is concerned, they should be probably saved forever. As far as the financial part of it, granted, they have a treasurer's report as part of their minutes, so that should those will be kept along with the minutes. But as far as the financial stuff, the receipts and whatnot that they get, I thought it was probably 7 years.
Yeah, I would look at that retention schedule and that will tell you. So deacons minutes, I would say, are permanent records. And honestly, the actions deacons report to the session. So they're like, any action that the deacons might take should be reported to the session and could be like a part of the session record. However, there's a lot of other things that we might put in minutes, which might be helpful to the history of the church, which is why I would keep them as a permanent record. So I know Sonia at the Rebbe Church, they have file drawers of churches that have joined them, like the Vesta Church and Wabasso Church and the Delhi Church, and they have some of those records there. And honestly, Sonia, I think those records should all be sent. But I do think, I don't know if any of you were around when the Doran clerk who kept all their records in the trunk of his car and he was the one who had the fire and kept the church records at his house, and they had a fire and they lost all their church records. I mean, there's a reason why we shouldn't keep church records at our house, even though I have church records here, but not Wyndham church records, Mary. I have other church records here at my house. I've heard horror stories about church records being in the trunks of people's car and their car being stolen. I know that churches aren't the perfect place either, but I don't know. I think it's important that we treat our records well because it's our history and it's our record of what we do. Okay. Any questions about that or comments?
Pam?
Go, Barb.
I was wondering about PW records. We haven't met as a PW for 10 years now. And what about those records?
My experience, Barb, is when I send records to Philadelphia of the churches that are dissolved, I've asked that question, do you want the minutes of the PW? And their response is usually yes, we do. Okay. So the minutes, not necessarily the financial stuff, but the minutes and like I know some PWs used to put together those program books for the year. Those are of interest to the Presbyterian Historical Society as well.
Okay, thank you.
And, I mean, here's something else for you to know. One church that dissolved had a pastoral record book. There's a pastoral record book, and in that book, the pastor kept track of all the funerals and baptisms and sermon titles and all of that kind of stuff. And the Historical Society was interested in that as well. Okay, Sonia,
Yeah, I just was gonna mention that the things that go to Philadelphia, they do end up on Ancestry. So then if you're doing genealogy research and everything, and if they digitize it and put it on Ancestry.
And what about history? What about history books? In other words, we
Yeah.
just went 450th anniversary.
Right.
Okay.
Yep. And so what you also need to know is, and I think they were pretty clear, the Historical Society, is that that you retain ownership of those records. They're still the First Presbyterian Church of Blue Earth's records. They're just being held in Philadelphia. So if you have a question about a baptism, about something in the minutes, about an ordination date, you can simply email Philadelphia and say, I need to know when Leroy Enengay was ordained. He was ordained at this church between this time period, and they will give you that answer. I mean, not immediately, but give them a few days and they will tell you. If First Presbyterian Church of Blue Earth, Cindy, you're right in my eyesight. if you're going to have a big celebration at your church, a historical celebration, and you want to see your minutes, you can say to Philadelphia, I'd love to have these minutes come back because they're yours. You're not giving ownership away. They are yours. You're just having them hold them in a nice, water-free, fire-free, and a very safe place. Because I know how hard it is for churches to give up those records. Go, Betty.
Can we send those records in a high quality 3-ring binder instead of sending back the other one? Because those other ones are a little expensive.
Yeah, sometimes, honestly, what some churches have done, I don't know of any of in our presbytery, but I have heard of churches that keep the big book. They keep that big official book, and hopefully they can find paper for it. But then they will send to Philadelphia. You can send it loose as long as it makes sense. So you can send your records to Philadelphia as loose paper. You can send it in a 3-ring binder.
Or put just rings around it?
Yeah, you can send it in they sell at the presbytery. I keep all of our records in what we call an archival box. So I'll send just the box off. And then you can keep your official binder thing. Does that make sense? Okay. I'm looking over my list of people's questions. And I'm looking over my list of what I wanted to talk about. And I have 2 more questions, but they're pretty easy ones. But I want to make sure that none of you have more questions right now. It seems like a lot. I warned you, Eva. It's a lot. It can be overwhelming.
This is just a different kind of question than.
Perfect.
So I've been thinking ahead on when we do our session record review, and wondering if you've got any thoughts on that yet.
That's one of the things I want to talk about before we leave is record review. But before we do that, does anybody have anything else? Or is that enough? We've been at this for a long while. Okay, so the Book of Order requires that we do a record review every 2 years, which is why I made the executive decision that we would not have one last year. So in the past, you saw on the website where that record review form is. In the past, we've done record review a lot of different ways. I've held them at different places within the presbytery. And that's probably what we would do again. We kind of have one up in the, Barb Dewey is here. We kind of have one up at Fergus Falls because those clerks around, and there's like 5 or 6 who might come to that. I've held them at the presbytery office because it's kind of central. And then I've held one in Wyndham because Wyndham is kind of central. Besides, I have an inn there. it's kind of central to the southern part of our presbytery. So that's probably what I would do this summer at some point, is bring you, and you know, there are presbyteries that do the record review over Zoom. I would have to see how that would work. I like seeing you though, and I like eating the yummy bars. So it's all about the food, Debbie.
But Zoom is fine, but there, you have to draw a line, I think.
Yeah. So
I don't see
mean,
how you could do review over a line.
yeah. So I'm thinking that we would do the record review kind of like what I said, because that's what we've always done. And I know that those are the last words of a dying church. But I have typically had one in Fergus Falls or wherever they do it. Bye, Mary. One in Wilmer and then one in Wyndham. What do you think about that?
I like that. I just like the last time we did one, we were in Wilmer.
Yeah, and that's
just kind of a drive, and to try to get everybody there, it seems like a more local.
Right.
Yeah.
And does it work better to do those reviews during the day or in the evening? Do any of you have an opinion about that?
Maybe evening, but
I think when we did it in Wyndham, we started like 6:30, and it was summertime, so I don't know.
Well, I know I had to go to Fergus Falls because I couldn't go to the one that I was originally supposed to go to, and it was in the evening.
Yeah. Okay.
Bad.
And I'm thinking there's not General Assembly this summer, which is one of the reasons I decided to move to, and my daughter was getting married last summer. So my summer it was hard to plan things. But I'm thinking that we would do those reviews this summer, and obviously like June, and obviously I'll get the dates set out to you. My other question is, I know that I love seeing you all. Would you be interested in doing another Zoom call in a couple months? Or do you just want to wait till we do the review and we can talk then? Or should I just plan one and whoever can come can come? Debbie's saying yes. All of the above. My next question is, if we were to do another, so it's what, January? So if we were to do this after Easter, let's say after Easter, maybe. Do you like Saturday morning, or would you prefer a weekday evening? Do you have an opinion about that?
Saturday is better for me.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think so.
Saturday.
Okay, and is this like the 10 to noon? Is that a good time on a Saturday?
Yep.
9 is too early for me, you all. Okay.
Yeah, I guess that works.
Okay, so look for an email from Karen. Maybe we could get one done before Easter. I don't know. Maybe right after Easter would be better. And then plan for June-ish dates for the review. And like I said, if you ever have questions, please reach out. I might not get back to you immediately, but I will get back to you. Okay, so is there anything else you want to say before we leave? And I have a long list of things I'm going to email out as well.
Thank you, Pam.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Pam.
go with God's blessings. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Pam.
Vikings win on Sunday.
Vikings win.